They are truly the students' president and first mom of this campus. They have been our greatest encouragers. They have challenged us to believe in ourselves, to dream big, and they've stood with us to make this campus what it is today. And we have been so incredibly lucky to have them here over the past 10 years. So with that, I think it's probably appropriate that I introduce our first speaker, who was in fact a student here a few years ago. Will Nash is a 2006 graduate of the University of Kentucky. He served as president of Sigma Chi fraternity, UK ambassador, an arts and sciences ambassador, and was also named the Otis A. Singletary Most Outstanding Male Graduate in 2006. Currently, Will is making just an incredible difference with Teach for America and was instrumental in starting the new Appalachia segment for Teach for America and will serve as the executive director this coming fall. So, ladies and gentlemen, Will Nash.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a privilege to be here today and to share from a former student's perspective what Dr. Todds' tenure has meant to me and to other UK students. There are literally hundreds of students who could regale you today with insightful and meaningful stories about the Todds, and I think that in and of itself is part of their legacy that they'll leave behind. As I think back to my time at UK and my personal relationship with Dr. Todd, I think about him and his leadership in three capacities, really. The first one Ryan alluded to is Dr. and Mrs. Todd as the father and mother figure on campus, often relied on for paternal things in loco parentis. Second is Dr. Todd as the leader of this campus. And the last is Dr. and Mrs. Todd as visionaries for this state. Like many other students, and I'm guessing some of the students in this room as well, I first met the Todds on South Campus as they welcomed students to their university. They served bottled water, they picked up and dropped off boxes, and they welcomed us into their home. Like good parents should, they made sure we had what we needed to be successful, and they wanted to see us start off on the right foot. Then they let us be to find our way and to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes and to learn and grow along the way. They checked in on us, though, again, as Ryan alluded, inviting students into their home into Maxwell Place to catch up on the experience of UK undergrads, and consoling hard times or bad grades with fresh-baked cookies. The Todds served us breakfast when they knew that we'd be up late studying. They walked around campus with us to ensure a safe learning environment, and they laughed and played games with us. I will say, Dr. Todd, it would have been a little bit more fatherly of you if you let us win some of those pool games, because I know some students are still reeling from those losses. As time on campus passed, though, Dr. Todd's role changed from chief father more to chief executive, whether following his work in the Kernel or attending events with Dr. Todd. It became more and more evident that he cared deeply about the success of every actor on campus. Every day he weighed decisions which could positively or negatively impact thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of lives in Kentucky and beyond. It's easy to fire off an editorial or create office chatter about the successes or mistakes of a presidency, but it is much harder to sit with those decisions every single day. I don't envy for 1 second the weight of the job Dr. Todd has carried for the last 10 years, and I wouldn't want to make any of those decisions for him. While critics will argue about the success of various programs or initiatives, it's impossible to disagree with the fact that Dr. Todd was thoughtful in his approach and ultimately did what he thought would be best for this campus and for this state. That, to me, is the embodiment of true leadership. As a student, I spent the most time with the Todds during the summer of 2005. At Kelly B's direction, we boarded a bus and embarked on the Dream Tour, a showcase of UK's contributions to the Commonwealth that, the Todds will agree, felt like a 50-day, 100-city consort tour. It was a sticky summer that for 2 weeks was filled with rubbery chicken lunches and Dr. Todd's stump speech. By the end, I was either ready to vote for him or give him the $12 in my pocket. I'd heard so much about UK's financial needs at the time. Perhaps one of the greatest lessons I learned from Dr. Todd came that summer in a buffet line. Will, he said, trust me, you can have either bread or dessert, but not both. Dr. Todd, as the father figure, liked to reemerge from time to time. And as he usually is, he was right. Both bread and dessert eventually caught up to me. It was during this dream tour, though, that I was fortunate to see day after day Dr. and Mrs. Todd's deep passion for this university, and where I began to develop my own passion for UK and Kentucky. In every city we stopped, the Todds engaged with local citizens about the work being done at the university and the potential impact to all Kentuckians. This is when I began to see UK as a catalyst for broad economic, scientific, and technological advancement. At every stop, Dr. Todd shared his take on UK's role in the development of a just society. Multiple times I heard him say, as you all have, leadership is about taking people where they need to go, whether they think they need to or not. The first time I heard it, Dr. Todd was referring to farmers in western Kentucky who would use new technology being developed at UK to map their fields and yield more crop production. Later in the week, Dr. Todd said again, leadership is about taking people where they need to go, whether they think they need to or not. But this time he was referring to medical research being conducted at UK that had the potential to wipe out one or more of Kentucky's uglies. Again and again, I heard this brief yet high-impact definition of leadership, and I began to adopt it as my own mantra. Today, as I work to bring a high-quality education to low-income communities across Appalachia, I often think about Dr. Todd's words. More importantly, though, I think about his actions. During my 4 years at UK, Dr. Todd was a model leader. He modeled making hard decisions, but standing behind them. He modeled how to respectfully disagree with really smart people. He modeled perseverance and disciplined thought. He modeled patience when working with elected officials. He modeled how to poke fun at those who poke fun at Kentucky. I believe it goes, "Well, John, I just got another patent." But most importantly, he modeled a deep sense of possibility for this university, and by way of that, this state. Whether you've known Dr. Todd personally or simply followed his work during his tenure at UK, each and every one of us has been impacted by both his actions and his words, and our development as students and professionals can, in many ways, be tied back to his leadership. I'm grateful I had the chance to know the Todds and work alongside them. Thank you for everything you've done for the students of this university. Your impact will truly be felt for generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Our next speaker is here today to offer a perspective from the faculty. Dr. Rodney Andrews, has been the director of the University of Kentucky Center for Applied Energy Research since 2007. Prior to that appointment, he served as acting director and was associate director of CARE, responsible for Carbon Materials Group since 2001. He joined the research staff at the center in 1999. He is an associate provost for the Department of Chemical and Materials Engineering at UK. Dr. Andrews received his bachelor's degree in science and chemical engineering from Michigan State University and his PhD in chemical engineering from right here at the University of Kentucky. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rodney Andrews.
I'm very happy to be given this opportunity to thank Dr. and Mrs. Todd for their last 10 years of work on behalf of the University of Kentucky. In thinking about this event, there were many things that came to mind that I wanted to include. The goals Dr. Todd has helped us accomplish, the emphasis he's put on service and outreach throughout the university, his willingness to help whenever asked, and his leadership through very tough economic times. Dr. Todd has been a keen proponent of the importance of new technologies, in our case for energy production, and the role that those can play in the future economy of Kentucky. Our work has been made easier by having a president who not only supports the work we do, but who's genuinely interested and informed about what we're doing. Perhaps some of this is reflected in his background as an electrical engineer, and that interest can occasionally cause a bit of an issue. And that I remember the day that he visited the center to meet with the staff and to get a tour of our projects. Watching him talk to the staff about the details of their work was very good until it went well beyond our scheduled time. He checked his BlackBerry and the reminders there for at least 4 or 5 times and decided, I've got 10 minutes more. When asked by people outside the university, what's it like working for Dr. Todd, I have, depending on the week, said either inspiring or exhausting. His dedication and enthusiasm for the work of the university has been amazing, and I feel fortunate to have had the chance to participate. He has led by example, working diligently to make a difference in our state, despite setbacks in budget and an evolving educational and political landscape. Just listening to him try to schedule something in a week broken up into 5-minute intervals is tiring, and I don't know anyone else who could have maintained the pace he did for the last 10 years. This does not mean that I'm going to miss the emails at 11:30 at night that politely but succinctly ask, "Please explain." I have appreciated the fact that Dr. Todd's response to most requests generally began with, "Why do we need to do this?" followed by, "How can I help?" When we decided we should measure the wind speed around main building and the office tower in the little wind corridor, he asked, what do we need to do, how long will it take, and what could he do to make it happen more quickly? For the next 6 months, he happily explained to people on our behalf that the little whirligigs in the front lawn were measuring wind speed along with those in the backyard and on top of the office tower. He had encouraged that project all along the way, and he didn't back down in his support despite the fact that they make a very annoying hum you could hear even inside the building. I think the only time he really wondered about where the project was going when the College of Design student teams that we had working with it suggested that we use the lights in the office tower as a giant bar graph for how much power we might produce. I also want to thank Dr. Todd for his commitment to the idea that the university can and should make a difference in the lives of Kentucky citizens. This importance was brought home to me when Dr. Todd, KGS Director Jim Cobb, Dean Michael Speaks from College of Design, and I road tripped to Henderson. Each of our organizations had ongoing projects there, and we'd been invited to meet with the local leadership to talk about those projects and how we could continue to work together. Arriving to find all of the judges, representatives, and state senators from Henderson and the surrounding counties really made it clear how Dr. Todd's willingness to represent UK across the Commonwealth had paid off. Dr. Todd's enthusiasm for the work being done for UK and his vision that to use the intellectual capabilities of the faculty and staff at UK to help drive the economy of all parts of the state was reinforced the reasons I wanted to work at UK. His focus on the land-grant mission of serving Kentucky, tackling its problems, and taking on projects that can directly improve the lives of the state's citizens has served our university and our state very well. Finally, I've also been fortunate enough to serve with Dr. Todd on the statewide STEM task force addressing science, technology, engineering, and math education. Taking on such a broad issue, keeping a statewide focus on it despite all the pressures on educational funding, has been an extraordinary accomplishment. As an energy technologist who sees STEM workforce development as a do-or-die issue for our state's future, I want to thank Dr. Todd for his efforts and personal investment in this topic. It has been his efforts using every opportunity to tie back to STEM disciplines that have allowed us to make the advancements we have in this area. So once again, thank you, Dr. and Mrs. Todd, for all you've done for the university over the last decade. The two of you have been a great example of a true partnership during your years here, and everything from welcoming students to heads of state to our campus. I wish you both the best of luck in whatever you choose to do next.
Thank you, Dr. Andrews. Our next speaker, who is here today to offer the perspective from the staff, is Robin Peace. I had the pleasure of serving on the Board of Trustees last year with Robin, and she's someone who served as a fantastic representative for the staff and for this university. Robin serves as the Director of the Work-Life Office and Human Resources. She served as Board of Trustees member as the first woman staff trustee in the university's history, and has been so instrumental in organizing and establishing an annual campus memorial honoring those in our campus community who have been lost over the years. Ladies and gentlemen, Robin Peace.
Well, it's my pleasure to speak on behalf of staff during this very sad but poignant and meaningful time in our university's history. I want to first of all say that for many staff, President Todd, you will be remembered for supporting shared governance through the endorsement of the Staff Senate, providing the university with a strategic plan for progress, humanizing the workplace with many benefits and initiatives such as the Family Education Tuition Discount Program and Work Life, and for your efforts in addressing the larger socioeconomic issues of our state by increasing our university's community engagement. But most of all, both you and Mrs. Todd, I think, will be remembered for tearing down the walls of Maxwell Place, and for your accessibility. I had the privilege, as Ryan mentioned, to interact with the Todds when I served as trustee during 2009 to 2010. And at that time, as it is now, board members are invited and were invited to attend many events. And I tried to attend as many events as I could, but I was not nearly as diligent as the Todds. I was inspired by their seemingly boundless energy to go to many university functions, the ribbon cuttings, football and basketball games, dinners, retirement receptions, business meetings, memorial services, and student activities. And you know, I always saw the Todds in attendance with warm smiles and greetings for everyone. During the annual holiday reception, I remember the Todds standing in line at least for 4 hours, maybe longer, shaking hands with everyone in attendance. And they actually said to me that it was very, very important to them to greet every single person who came to that reception that evening. And staff have often commented on how kind and caring and friendly the Todds have been throughout their tenure on this campus. But I'll say, like you've been hearing, that while I do believe that you were outgoing with everyone, it seemed that the students had a special place in your hearts. And sometimes when I would meet up with the Todds after a long day of activities, I could tell you were tired. But whenever we started talking about students, Patsy, Mrs. Todd especially, your eyes would light up and your new energy seemed to transform you when we began to talk about students. And then I remember chatting with both of you during the finals midnight crunch brunch, and I remember how delighted President Todd you were to play pool with the guys. I couldn't believe it. I could barely keep my eyes open at midnight, and you were out there playing pool with the guys. Even then, I couldn't help but think how fortunate our university campus was to have such a devoted president and First Lady, leaders who were not only committed to their work at the institution, but happy in their interaction with students. And I thought how great it must have been for parents to send their children to a campus whose president and First Lady not only wanted to ensure student safety and education, but also wanted to embrace them as family. It was consequently no surprise to me that this event was organized by SGA and that the students feel the love that you have for them. I also wanted to say that, like many of our speakers, Kentucky has been very fortunate to have such an innovative, creative, hands-on leaders at our flagship university to mentor our young adults. Your role modeling, the Todds role modeling, is particularly important in a state with so many challenges and where the social cues for success are not always apparent. Recently, I overheard my 12-year-old son ask his dad, "Do I have to leave Kentucky to do great things?" So I think that I speak for many Kentucky residents when I say that while we want to encourage our children's global education and global travel, we want to be able to tell our children that they don't have to leave home to be successful. And so therefore, my fondest memories of President and Mrs. Todd are their strong commitment to educating our youth, their commitment to wanting to better Kentucky so that our children don't feel compelled to leave. Thank you, President and Mrs. Todd. We have appreciated your openness, your accessibility and hard work. Best of luck in your future endeavors that we hope will include continued advocacy on behalf of higher education in Kentucky.
Thank you, Robin. Our next speaker, or testimonial, if you will, is from Terry Birdwhistle, who now serves as the Dean of UK Libraries and is a former university archivist. Dean Birdwhistle has been credited with building programs and centers, obtaining significant archival collections, as well as actively engaging in scholarly research, publications, and media productions during his 35 years of service in the UK Libraries Administration. A UK alumnus, Dean Birdwhistle is a noted historian, so we're expecting some good stories here, and an adjunct faculty member in the UK College of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, Terry Birdwhistle. Dean Terry Birdwhistle.
Well, no pressure there. Thank you. Every time Ryan would say we're going to hear from a student perspective, Dean Lester thought I was going to get up. And they'd say staff perspective, Dean Lester thought I was going to get up, because I've been a staff, a student, and a faculty member, and now an administrator. But Dr. Todd, not all those during your tenure. Thank all of you all for coming today, and thank the people who invited me to speak here today. First, I want to say something about Ryan. What a tremendous president of SGA he has been, representing the students so well. And I vividly remember my first conversation with Ryan. It was in the summer before he was going to become student government president. He met with me over in the library, and he said, Dean Birdwhistle, I know that SGA is helping underwrite the library hours at $15,000 a year. How much longer will we have to do that? And we stopped it, didn't we, Ryan? And I think students should understand how, at least from my perspective, how well he's looked out for the interest of students over the last 2 years. Well, of course, I'm honored to have this opportunity to reflect upon President Todd's 10 years as president of the University of Kentucky. And Dr. Todd, it takes somebody our age to understand how fast 10 years can go now, doesn't it? And I know it has been a quick 10 years for you. And of course, it's difficult to talk about the history of the Todd administration. By my calculations, it hadn't ended yet. So there's a little more history to be made. And also, to add to that, I was asked to talk about the history of the Todd administration in 5 minutes. And that's what I was allotted, so I'm going to give it a shot. But I was thinking, Dr. Todd, that journalists like to brag that they write the first draft of history. And so with that in mind, I was thinking we'd want to spend more than 5 minutes on the second draft, because there might be some corrections we have to make in that first draft, written by the newspapers. In just 4 more years, this university will celebrate its 150th birthday. And of course, that's a major milestone for this institution. And in a century and a half, there have been only 11 presidents of UK. And despite all the changes of locations, I think it's very appropriate that we're in this room today to celebrate your tenure as your predecessors look over your shoulder. Each president represented on the walls in this room brought their own vision, they brought their own administrative style, and of course they brought their own personality to the presidency at UK. But there's an important similarity among all of the 11 presidents. Each struggled to move this university forward with less financial support than they felt they needed. The University Press of Kentucky has just recently published a biography of UK's third president, Frank McVeigh, who guided UK through the Great Depression at a time when many people thought the university might just close. So it can get worse. Our 8th president, Otis Singletary, who served UK during the 1970s and 1980s, once said that he felt like he was engaged in a conspiracy with a relatively small group of people to produce a better university than Kentuckians were willing to pay for. President Todd, you've been described as an academic, a scientist, a business leader, and my favorite, civic evangelist. But you may agree that being president is one of the most difficult of all those jobs that you've held. Former President Lyndon Johnson once said that being president is like being a jackass in a hailstorm. Sometimes there's nothing else to do but to stand there and take it. For nearly 150 years, UK has provided public higher education to Kentucky citizens and in doing that has joined the ranks of America's great public universities. All along our journey, UK has kept that fundamental commitment to public higher education. And everybody in this room, I suspect, has heard President Todds say that he could raise UK's ranking by lopping off the lowest test scores. He could build UK stronger academically by worrying less about our fellow Kentuckians. But no UK president has chosen that path, and President Todd vigorously renewed UK's commitment to the Commonwealth, even as the university's support from the state continued to decline. President Todd remained determined that first-generation college students, like himself, like me, and like some of you, could come to UK and be successful in Kentucky or anywhere in the world. As a young boy in Western Kentucky, President Todd dreamed about his future. He challenged himself and ultimately all Kentuckians to dream about what they might accomplish and to challenge themselves to work toward that dream and then to succeed. President Todd is an inspiration to all Kentuckians who start out in families where higher education may not be a priority or might not consider it financially feasible. Through hard work and help from others, President Todd achieved his aspirations and has worked hard the past 10 years to make it possible for other Kentuckians to also live their dreams. Fundamentally, President Todd believes steadfastly in UK's land-grant mission of service. He has a true affection for the students of this university, as we've already heard. Moreover, he is a scholar who understands the value of intellectual inquiry. But of course, even President Todd didn't succeed at everything, but who could? But like those who served before him in the presidency, he leaves this university better than he found it. He now joins a very select fraternity of former UK presidents. And as a former president, I know he will continue to help this university achieve its destiny. And I look forward to continuing to work with you in that regard. So the question, how will history judge President Todd and his administration? That's the question I've been asked to address Dr. Todd. Well, for sure, Lee Todd will forever be known as the UK president who brought Starbucks to the UK campus. And that's something. Of course, now I'm addicted, but that's okay. But there are many other accomplishments as well. 10 years ago, just before Dr. Todd took office, I put together a presentation on the accomplishments of all of the UK presidents. I made a little list of all of what they had accomplished. And at the time, of course, I had no way of knowing what Dr. Todd would or could accomplish. So I posed 9 questions that might determine his success as president in this presentation that I made. Would he continue the successful development campaign then underway? Well, he not only continued it, but he built on it in a big-time way, getting the endowment to $1 billion. And that is a historic achievement for this university. Would President Todd take up the challenge of moving UK towards top 20 by 2020? He didn't flinch. He knew that we had to keep striving for that goal. He worked against sometimes insurmountable odds, but his business plan has provided the framework for that future when the funding returns. Would the Todd administration run a successful and clean athletics program? The answer is yes. But the athletics program at UK during the Todd years, I think, will be remembered as much for the support of Olympic sports and gender equity as it will be for Final Four banners and football victories. Would President Todd increase UK's role in Kentucky economic development? Without question. The Todd administration put tremendous emphasis on economic development and made great strides in UK's engagement activities all across the Commonwealth. Would President Todd continue UK's commitment of statewide leadership at all levels of Kentucky education? Well, we know that President Todd was an education reformer before he became UK president, so there was no doubt he would continue that effort. And he was an advocate on behalf of UK and on behalf of himself for education from preschool all the way through college and beyond. Would President Todd continue to meet the challenges of enhancing a diverse and inclusive campus? Well, President Todd pushed vigorously for more diversity on this campus, and I think the numbers that we all know in terms of the student body and the faculty and the administration, there's no question what he has done. And that type of change is a great legacy for years to come at this university. Well, the questions get a little tougher as we go. Could President Todd maintain successful relationships with the governor and the state legislature? And that was a big question 10 years ago. And I was thinking about this, and I think the answer is yes, just not both at the same time. In Kentucky politics, it's gotten even trickier than your predecessors had to deal with, President Todd. But I think you've done a good job with that. Would President Todd work to improve town-gown relations? And I can say that I don't believe there's been a UK administration that has had better relationships with the Lexington community than the Todd administration. Well, my final question posed to the incoming Todd administration 10 years ago was really the tough one, Dr. Todd, and that was, could he keep the Lexington Herald-Leader happy? We can probably agree today that some things, no matter how hard we try, are just not possible. But I think it's been a great 10 years, and President Todd and Mrs. Todd, I want to thank you for your service and for all that you've done for UK and for this Commonwealth.
Thank you, Dean Birdwhistle. I'm going to keep that hell story in my back pocket for some time. It's a good one. Our last speaker today obviously needs no introduction. A man whose vision to elevate the university into a world-renowned university and research institution, a pillar for public higher education, is nearly unparalleled. He has time and again displayed a deep and a resounding love for this campus and an unrelenting charge to improve the lives of Kentuckians for now and future generations. I am, of course, talking about the man who will be standing at this podium here in just a second, Dr. Lee Todd, and it is with a very, very bittersweet heart that I express to both of you all just not only my deepest of thanks for being a mentor and a confidant, but also just a fantastic example of how one should lead others. President and Mrs. Todd have created a community where students have always come first, and then we have heard they will be known as the student's president and first mom. In fact, I think, doesn't your license plate even say first mom on it? I believe it does. He has challenged us to believe in ourselves, to dream big, and he has stood with us to make this campus what it is today. So ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lee Todd.
Thank you. And you expect me to say something after all of this, so, and of course I will. So just part of the deal. So I'm glad to have Chris Krumran back on our campus, another fine student that's joined us, and he writes speeches for me, and I read them, and then I generally, as Dave Melanson, who came in a few minutes ago, used to do that job, but realize I get off my cards every now and then. So and that's when I probably give Herald-Leader some material anyway, if to beat me with at times. But I wasn't sure what to expect with this occasion. I appreciate so much the SGA and Ryan, you all pulling this together and having these wonderful collection of speakers to recount some of the experiences. I still wish Will Nash could have done his monologue that he did to satirize my stump speech that he heard about 40 times, because he did a great job with that. And he got a couple of them in there, but when you look at the students who've only left here just a few years ago and yet comes back to Kentucky and brings an opportunity to enhance education for our rural part of our state, what more could you ask for? So thank you for being a part of this today. Rodney did get a lot of emails from me late at night, many of them asking him to give a speech the next day to a legislator or to a group that we tried to cajole and convince that what we were doing here was important for the whole state. And I have to say, and I said it before, that one of my best appointments was putting him in the position at CER to take the leadership. And he and his wife came down to Winter College to explain energy technology to a group of our alumni, and he's done an exceptional job in everything that I could ask him to do. Robin served on the board. She's made work life real to the people of this campus, which was important, because at a time when you're asking them to just give, and we don't have a lot to give back, we need to be looking at innovative ways to make life easier. And work life has been an effort that she's championed, and I so much appreciate that and your service on the board. Terry is full of stories. I had not heard the Hale story yet, but I can use that. But I do an oral history with him at times. He's just got really has a tremendous oral history program, and he's got the ability to get you into a conversation, to ask questions, and draw out from you some of the inner feelings that you have, which he tells me won't be published for 25 years or something like that. So I'll hold you to that in some cases, although someone said I'm getting even more candid now as the end of my term approaches. But it's so wonderful to see a native Kentuckian, someone who spent their time on this campus, rise to the level of dean when you do a national search and you find out the best person you find is right there in front of you. So congratulations to you. My family, I can't, I really haven't thought about what to say when I leave this position yet. It just hasn't hit me yet. I think I'm a protector of myself in that regard, and maybe that's, and I said once that it will hit me someday, and but doing this job without my wife would not have been possible. We talk about opening up Maxwell. Martha Lane Collins introduced me once and said if I knew how much goodwill you could generate by cutting down bushes and taking down fences, I would have done it across the state of Kentucky. So she should have had Patsy as an advisor. And you look at the look of the campus, the feel of the campus, the first mom aspect of this was what we didn't walk in expecting to happen, but our son got the license plate and started the process. Well, she started the process, I guess. And then the Women in Philanthropy movement, which she's done to try to bring money in to help students study abroad and so forth. They're just innumerable things. And plus, she's, in many cases, my only confidant. You know, there are times when you can't say some of the things you're thinking to anybody else. And so for that, I greatly appreciate that. Our children have been students here. They've been supporters forever. When I was in contention for this job, Troy used to call the house and ask Patsy, is there anything in the paper today about Dad? And she'd say yes or no, and if she said yes, he said, well, should I read it? So his tolerance for somebody taking on his dad is not very high. And but when I was interviewing for the job, I was meeting with the students, and I looked out in the audience, and I saw somebody with a hat way down over their head, kind of crunched down in a seat, and he was there to defend me if I needed it, I think. Catherine came back to sing at my inauguration, which was one of the hardest moments I've had to get through in my experience here. Went back to Boston University and called Patsy and told her that she was homesick, but she'd never quit anything. And Patsy said, it's just transfer, just come on back. And so she did. And she's done a couple of degrees here since then and just been a stalwart for us. And during this period of time, we ran into a young man named John Norman over on the far right, who is now our son-in-law, and I just saw him creep in a few minutes ago. I could go through this whole room looking at people that some have worked for me for 30 years or more, I don't know. Some have worked for shorter periods of time. But the bond that we've made with many of you as you've helped us has just been unbelievable. The administrators that I have, I think the next president, whoever that is, will inherit some of the strongest people, the most caring people, the people who want to make a difference, the people who will do whatever it takes to make a difference are here. They're positioned. And they will stand this university well over the next several years. The students we've already talked about. I guess what I would say, and it's something I mentioned in my remarks when I announced the retirement, and somebody asked me what was I most proud of. And, I said I can't go there because, as I say, I could pick out every one of you and say something I'm proud of. But then I backtracked and said, no, I think I'm proud of the fact I think we've changed the attitude of the place. And that's not an easy thing to change. I think we've got to change the attitude of the whole state. But I did try to make a list of some of the cultural changes that I think will last. They're not specifics, and we can talk about going from 27, we're 27th in the nation now among public universities in research, and if you look at just non-federal research, we're 21st. This top 20 thing isn't just unattainable, but I think the culture change is the way we're doing research, the kind of research we're doing, the research that touches especially the population. And that's a cultural change that doesn't have a dollar value to it, but it has an impact and it has an importance. I look at the student attitudes that I see across campus. Patsy and I had an apple polishing event last night at Maxwell with the leaders of the Greek organization. Sharp as a tack. They really care. I mean, you look at the things that they've done to show service, which will stay, the fusion experience just the first day that their parents are gone, when they don't have to get up, but a lot of them do. When you look at K-Week and the fact that students under leadership from people like Kelly Bozeman, the Leadership Summit, did in order to change our whole K-Week, which will stay. You look at Dance Blue, $2.7 million that group has raised to impact the children with cancer. Unbelievable. And we're getting some of the best. The Russell High, where Johnny is a graduate, won the Governor's Cup the other day, and the captain of their team is coming to the UK. There were times when the best students in Kentucky thought they had to go past the state university, but now we're getting a lot of those. And I don't want to mention names, but I have to give Don Witt and his organization a ton of credit for that. The culture of the academic area. I was meeting with our Provost Subaswamy today that I'm proud to have gotten back on our campus and who came back to try to make this thing happen. He could have gone elsewhere, but to take on changing the undergraduate core curriculum, and Ernie Allarella was here a minute ago who lived with that. That will be a lasting change. It was only changed 25 years ago, so we now are bringing it and modernizing it. I mentioned the deans we've been able to attract. I think because of the strength of what we have tried to do and plan here. And I see Tom Lester, who's only one of 2 remaining deans since I've been here, so he's a stayer. And I'll be speaking to his group tonight at a banquet. But we've got deans that aren't whining. I saw one at a Christmas reception one day, and I was introducing him to the head of KET, and I made a comment that, we attract people here because we got this business plan passed, we got the funding for it, and yet when they come, I tell him, not only can I not give you a raise, you can't give your people a raise. Well, this dean interrupted me and said, well, you don't need to say that, it's my job to help you find the money. And that's a change. I think that's a cultural change. We're doing innovative things to create more courses, to create enrollment in spaces where we haven't had it before, create programs that we haven't had before, to be uniquely accessible to students that didn't come here before. And so that culture is different. Outreach. I had one of my sweetest calls. If you know a gentleman named Wimberly Royster, you have to smile. I'm not sure how old Wimberly is now, but he was Dean of Research here 50 years ago, I think, and he's still kicking. But when he called after I announced my retirement, his comment was, you've made outreach real. And that's pretty powerful because, and I have to give all the credit to the faculty and the staff that are here that have taken on some of these outreach type opportunities because you don't typically get tenure by doing stuff close to home. I mean, you got to do something that's pretty esoteric that only about 20 people in the world are interested in, and it's got to be far away. It's got to be just really difficult. But yeah, we've got people taking on methamphetamine problems and K through 12 education issues like Project Lead the Way that Tom Lester has taken under his wing and Mayor John. We've got the types of things going on there that change the state, and it buys us political capital if you want to get pragmatic about it and talk about politics, Carrie. when we don't have the community colleges, we've got to make ourselves real to the people out there. Can't be the University of Lexington. And you all have done that, the faculty and staff. And that culture, I think, is a change. Healthcare, we've got a beautiful building coming up over there that nobody expected in 2001. But it's not the physical facility. It's how they got there. The fact that you recruit a David Moliterno from Cleveland Clinic to head the Gil Hart Institute. The next thing you hear, not because I ask him or anything else, he's driving to Rockcastle County every Monday morning to see patients. And I tell you, when you see the judge executive and the mayor of that area, they're blown away that UK is getting out there. We've got cancer affiliate networks where we're teaching protocols so we can keep cancer patients in their rural areas with their families as long as possible before they come here. As a result, our revenue from rural Kentucky has gone up 30% still. And when they have critical problems, they trust us now. They come to us. I had a gentleman the other day tell me at Winter College that 10 years ago he said, I don't know of anybody that went to UK healthcare. He said, I know I didn't. But he said, now everybody I know goes there. And so that's a change. And those are some lasting changes. And it's all, every one of these comments is underwritten by the people that are doing it. And the desire there, and economic development, creating jobs for our graduates, I think is very important. And there are 88 startup companies in this region, got $65 million worth of new capital last year. There are 800 jobs there. The jobs for UK-based companies, and there are 39 of those, the income is the salary is $70,000, which is $15,000 higher than the ones that weren't founded with UK intellectual property. So it shows you the kind of companies that we can create, the kind of things we can do. Athletics, I appreciate what Terry said about the Olympic sports. Would not have happened without a Mitch Barnhart. He feels as strongly as anybody that if a student takes the time to compete with this university's name on their chest, that they ought to be able to have the ability to compete. And the rifle team won their first national championship not long ago in 23 years. I get rings. They're dangerous, I might add, because I was wearing one of those clunkers the other day at the North Carolina game, and he tied us up, and the referee made another bad call. I said, "Gee," and I said, "Whoa, can't do that again." So I mentioned that to our astute board chairman, Britt Brockman. He said, "You remember when you were in high school, you turned your ring around backwards and hit people on the head?" I said, "Oh, that's so juvenile." Yeah, I do. I do remember it, though. So development, somebody already mentioned a $1 billion campaign. Done. Completed. Only 31 universities have ever done it. Those are the things that I guess get back to the point of let's raise our vision. We go through this state, especially if you're native Kentuckians, thinking you can't compete. And that's just something we got to get rid of. I spoke to the students the other night in the final word lecture they asked me to do. And I realized when I read Professor Panash's final lecture that he gave at Carnegie Mellon, he said he dreamed about working for Walt Disney when he was a kid. And then I thought back, and growing up in Arlington and so forth, I dreamed I might be a TV repairman, because I saw one of those in town. Or I dreamed I'd be a high school teacher because that's who I admired most. And then when I came to Murray, I dreamed I might be a teacher in college. But then when I came to UK, I thought I might be a research professor. Went to MIT, I thought I might start a company. People who don't start out in life with a lot of self-esteem or assurance dream linearly. We dream what we see, and we got to make our kids see those things faster. And that's the kind of change that we got to bring about in the state. And I feel it's happening here. I don't know how we attract some of the people we've attracted. I'm not sure how we've retained some people we've retained. You hear all about the not having the salary increases and some of the issues that we have to deal with. I think that our provost has dealt with them masterfully, given the changes we've had to confront. But yet, when some of these new people come in, they said there's still a buzz here, and for that I'm very, very grateful. And I think that it's. If there is a legacy, and I'll be interested, I was reading Dr. McVeigh's book the other day, and it's very, very well done. And you do have to wonder in this position, and I never have thought about it. What will the history be? I hope they use those questions you used. So, but you just hope you get you create specific things, and they may or may not make it, but you create a kind of ambiance or culture or whatever, and if that's sustainable, then you made a difference. And I feel very good about that. And I want to thank my family. I'm looking forward to spending more time with them. I've got an office I'm going to take up over in the Aztec building in back of the engineering complex and focus on a few things. And people have asked me if I have a bucket list. I said, no, I've got an anti-bucket list. I got some things I don't want to do anymore, and which will create some time so I can do some more things. But I hope I have time to thank many of you individually for your dedication to what Patsy and I have done here. Good friends that listen to us and give us advice. Almost family members that I see at the far end down there that I'll start crying before she does if I say much more about Kelly B. But it's just been a special experience. This is a tough job, I still remember some staff member telling me how depressed they were. I said, well, what if you were responsible for everybody here and you couldn't give anybody a raise? And how depressing you think that is? And so you really have to be the jackass with a smile on when the hell comes down, I guess. You try to keep a happy face. And when you try to keep a happy face, there are a few people you share reality with at times, and those people have been very special to us, and we'll find time to thank them. But hopefully the year that we're going to kind of take off, I will have a chance to spend some time with all of you to thank you for being a part of us, for doing what you've done for us, and allowing us to be part of your lives. But thanks for this. This is wonderful, and glad you taped it so I can savor it over the years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Todd. That concludes the event today. I'd like to appreciate the recognition for SGA, but it was really Kelly B., Katie Bennett, UK PR and marketing who put this event together today. Thank them. We thank them very much for doing that, and for all the changes that occurred due to the weather today. Thank you all for being here with all of those circumstances. So thank you for being here. Appreciate it.